Ashutosh Garg has spent a quarter of a century in the corporate world in two different industries. Spent 17 years with IDC as senior executive, and then in the aerospace business. And having worked for 8 years in aerospace, it suddenly dawned on to him. And within a span of 3 months, he started a new venture called Guadian Lifecare, which has pharmacies, about 230, and growing strong. It'll be interesting to know from Ashutosh what made him choose or decide to become an entrepreneur. Ashutosh, welcome.
Thank you.
You've been a senior executive, had all the privileges and the luxuries that come with it. You had, so to say, the aura of comfort around you. Why did you decide to jump into the entrepreneurial bandwagon?
You know, for several years, before I really started Guardian Pharmacy, I had the desire to be my own boss. So, like most people of my vintage, I was making investments in the dot-com boom, and I was investing in software, etc. But I was really investing in other people's dreams. So I was keen to be able to get into this particular business, not pharmacies, but to get into the entrepreneurial world. I was also keen to be able to do things which were socially relevant in this country. And finally, what I said was that I needed a business that was not very, very heavily capital intensive, which would mean that I would be able to use whatever small savings I had. So when I started looking at opportunities, I realized that the pharmacy business was an area which I could afford to invest small sums. I could scale up slowly, and I could continue to be able to manage a business which was easy enough to handle and yet have a huge scalable opportunity.
You know, looking from the outside, whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur or a regular folk who's interested in this industry, there are two challenges. One is pharmaceutical industry, especially the pharmacy part, looks capital intensive, which is you're saying is otherwise.
Absolutely.
And two is you didn't have an experience in this or vertical expertise. So you told me the first challenge was overcome because you knew it wouldn't be capital intensive. But how about the other part, when you didn't have the vertical expertise?
You know, as far as capital intensive is concerned, retail is very, very capital intensive. When I started it, the first 8 or 10 stores was something I could manage within my own budgets. Later on, of course, it is very capital intensive. So if I've said that it is not capital intensive, I must correct my earlier statement. It is capital intensive, but it was easy for a person with small capital to make a beginning, to show proof of concept, and then be able to expand operations. And your second question, if you could just repeat that for me?
Is you don't have the vertical expertise in pharmacy.
Okay. For me, you know, I've always been a bit of a maverick all my life. You know, having worked in ITC, I was in tobacco, I was in hotels, I moved into aerospace. So I think what was far more important in retail was to be able to manage large number of stores, distributed stores across a large geography, manage large teams of people, manage huge sums of inventory. And if we were able to do that, we had a successful business. So I've never really felt the need to have domain knowledge, because today I have over 600 people who are pharmacists working in the company who have more than enough domain knowledge. So I think for any entrepreneur, what's important is to make sure that you have the ability to manage the business, to be able to manage cash flows, to be able to manage people, to be able to train the people, and to be able to dream and think big. Domain knowledge will follow.
So you have two sets of people who are going to aspire to be like you. One are senior executives who are mid-careers, who want to change suddenly and try the entrepreneurship route. The other group are obviously the younger generation coming out of schools and early careers and trying to emulate you. And they see this and they say, well, what else do I need? Because the only reason I want to be an entrepreneur or join an entrepreneurial venture is because I have the vertical expertise. Either I could be the co-founder and CEO, or I could be an asset to the company. In the absence of both, I don't have anything much to contribute. But you're giving them a very different lesson, which is to learn the other aspects of the trade.
Absolutely.
So if you can expand a little bit more.
Domain knowledge helps an individual if it is very, very highly specialized. So if you're a doctor who wants to start his own hospital, you're a specialist who can then start a hospital. If you're in IT and you want to start a software company, you'll be able to restrict yourself and build a software company. But when you're thinking of a very, very large, scalable business, domain knowledge is something which you can always bring in. And my advice to anybody, whether it's young or old, or someone who's just starting off or someone who's looking at a mid-career shift, is look at the business, see how relevant it is to your own likes and dislikes. Make sure you have checked your own risk appetite. Do you have the ability to risk whatever you want to risk? I don't think anybody would want to risk his wife's jewelry at the end of the day and say that, I've given up everything. So you have to be able to say, what is my risk appetite? Is this a business that I'm comfortable with? Is this a business that I believe is something that I can scale up? And then take a call. For example, I looked at the food business, and I went and trained in a couple of stores of McDonald's, and then I realized that food was not something I wanted to do. It didn't excite me. So I had no food knowledge, I had no pharmacy knowledge. But the business that really excited me was the pharmacy business, because I saw the huge opportunity. It's a $23 billion opportunity, completely fragmented, and that's where I thought I could organize the business and bring in a brand.
If you go back to the Silicon Valley style of thinking, where you have technology products or services, every entrepreneur who succeeded will tell you that it's not the money that motivated them, it is always the product or the service. So in your case, it's neither the product nor the service, but in some ways there is the service because you're doing retail. So the only portion that is left for aspiring entrepreneurs is the money success. So if this is what they have to aim, what is the mantra where you say, it's not about the money, it's about what you provide to the consumer?
I would add another dimension. Money is relevant only up to a particular point. And the old statement of virtually everybody that you only need a finite amount of money to be able to live well. So money has never been a driver for me. If money had been a driver, I wouldn't have got into business, because I had earned enough money for my wife and me to live comfortably for the rest of our lives. I think as a person who made the change when I was 46 years and 6 months old, it was really something that I was trying to prove to myself, that do I have the capability of being able to take on a challenge at 46 years and build an operation which was big. So I had to go through some very, very major lifestyle changes. I lost 16 kilos of weight. I went into a regular exercise regimen because I couldn't afford to fall sick. And with God's grace, in the last 7 years, I haven't fallen sick for one day. I was able to bring together a team of very, very good people. So it's not just money or domain knowledge which to me drives entrepreneurs. It's creating a business, leaving a legacy, and doing things which are very, very different, which ultimately will establish that the challenge you have taken yourself can be met, is what I think drove me personally.
One biggest strategic challenge, if I may say so, is about funding, especially in retail. You said earlier that obviously you rent spaces everywhere, 230 plus stores and growing.
Yeah.
What was the funding strategy? You bootstrapped initially, then you had your own family funded.
Yeah.
But it still looks a large amount.
It is. So what I did was, after putting my own money into the company, I brought my family and my friends, and then it just started spreading through word of mouth. So people who had been former colleagues, investment bankers, someone wanted to put $100,000, someone said $200,000. And before we knew it, in 4 years' time, we had raised almost $10 million in the company. Those $10 million is what got us up to the first 100, 110 stores. And it was only after that that we brought in private equity. So funding is a challenge for an entrepreneur, but sometimes the credibility of the entrepreneur helps significantly in raising money from friends and friends of friends.
My last question is about your exit. I know it's too soon to talk about it, but obviously you have certain thoughts. Going forward, where do you see yourself, and how would you want to exit if you ever want?
See, this is a fascinating business. The pharmacy business all over the world is an annuity business. Once a pharmacy starts making money, it needs rare talent to mess it up. You know, unlike any other retail business, where if you're in food, people get tired of the menu and they want to go to a new restaurant. If you're in fashion, people get tired of the fashion, so it's fashion fatigue. In the case of a pharmacy, there's a very, very strong bond that develops with the consumer. So for me personally, I'm not looking at an exit. However, I will certainly look at an opportunity to do an IPO soon, so that people who have invested along with me will have an exit. Having said that, the old Godfather line is always there. If someone makes me an offer I can't refuse, I will certainly look at it. So, and that could be a strategic sale. So I'm completely open. I'm not looking for an exit, but if something comes along which is really outstanding, I'm willing to look at it.
I missed one question which is important, which is about getting the right resources. In your case, pharmacists and the other support staff.
Yeah.
There are opportunities outside of India with good pays, and there's a demand for it, especially in the US. How do you find the right talent and retain it?
As far as pharmacists are concerned, I think India is producing a lot of pharmacists. And over the last 7 years, we have increased pharmacist salaries by almost 400%. So therefore, you know, we are doing things in, you know, to make sure we retain our people. But if you were to try and compare pharmacist salaries in the US, then yes, we are not a patch on that. But then that's the case with virtually every other price band that you look at in India versus the Western world. So while the good pharmacists are definitely getting opportunities abroad, there are a lot of people who are choosing to stay back in India. And I think those are the people who are finding careers with my company, and those are the people who will continue to grow with my company.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.